Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
These are all the ones that decided to come back after the exam. Maybe there's a train or something. Who knows? I know you are all... Oh, by the way, today is not International Dress Like a Chemist Day. I was just cold. You're anxious, right, about your performance on the exam. You might have been talking to each other, psyching each other out, doing whatever it is. You've got this exam autopsy thing coming up. You don't know what it is. All will be revealed tomorrow, right? I kind of feel like you are at the end of the tutorial zone and you're ready to enter, right, the greater part of the game. So after tomorrow, you'll basically have everything about this class and how it works, from how we do lecture labs all the way through the exam process. And what we learn tomorrow, right, will repeat itself 3 more times as we do the other exams in the course. So that we'll just have to wait for all of that for tomorrow in your respective labs. You'll get to know your score and then what process you're going to go through to get that score to be higher. But what we're going to do today and Thursday is, boy, we're going to climb a mountain. We are going to, this is going to be rough. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. We are going to have to use math. We're going to have to use vectors. We're going to have to be able to actually draw pictures. Don't worry, I'll teach you how to do that, right? And kind of, so we had this toolbox, right, that we had on the board. We were able to refer to it the whole time. For the next 2 chapters, there isn't really a toolbox. There's one equation. It's Newton's second law, F equals ma. There, I'm done. Have good luck. It's what that equation generates. That's the part of the process that's really, really important for you to latch onto. Because what we're going to be doing now is generating equations and then having to solve those. So instead of the toolbox being given to you, every problem has to generate its own set of equations. It's the nature of what we call dynamics. We're moving from how things move with the kinematic equations to why things move. And it's in that why that we're going to get some complexity, be able to solve more problems, finally start being able to talk about friction, the other F word. But before we get to any of that, I want you to know who to blame. I don't know about you, but he just looks creepy. Is it the eyes? Who is this? This is Newton, Isaac Newton, Sir Isaac Newton. Genius? Yes. Invented physics as we know it today? Yes. Responsible for kind of actually really inventing science as we know it today, this idea that we have different disciplines in science. Before Newton, you were a natural philosopher. You kind of had your fingers in every pie. After Newton, specialization started taking place. So should be acknowledged for all of that. I wouldn't use the word venerated because the guy was a jerk. I mean, like, class A jerk. Not nice to people, spent most of his career trying to shut down the work of other people, using his position of authority in the British government and his esteem as this monumental physicist. He then spent the rest of his career trying to suppress other people's work, especially if it contradicted his own. He was also nuts. I don't know what it is about genius, okay? But it comes with some pretty big problems on the mental side. In the case of Newton, his psychosis focused on trying to determine when the end of the world was. He was a big fan of Nostradamus. He also tried to find the Philosopher's Stone, the elixir of immortal life. So one day he wanted to figure out how the eyeball was connected to the body. So he took a bodkin, which is an old word for a knitting needle, only it was kind of a big one, just pulled his eye back, stuck the needle between his eye and his eye socket, and started running it around, recording the whole time. The guy was nuts. Okay? Like, I think this is important for you to know things about history, right? Yes, did incredible work, invented calculus, invented physics. Like, the genius is there. And we're going to spend the next 2 weeks, well, actually the rest of the semester, dealing with, right, Newton's observations about how the universe works. But just realize he was a jerk and crazy at the same time, right? So, and Thomas Edison, total jerk, worse than Newton. Don't like Thomas Edison at all. All right, he did not invent a light bulb. What he invented was effectual slaves to work for him to invent a light bulb. And then stole all of their money. All right, so we are going to do Newton's 3 laws, and hopefully you've read up about them so we can go quick on this. I'm going to do them slightly out of order. I'm going to do first law, I'm going to do third law, and then we're going to do second law, because second law is where we're going to spend a lot of our mathematical time. The first and third are ideas, concepts that steer and help inform a lot of things, namely what's a force, how do we apply them, why do they exist, and then first and third help us to apply the second correctly. Right? So Newton's first law, what is it? Now I know how many of you read. Okay, so we probably know something about an object in motion stays in motion, and an object at rest stays at rest, my favorite part of Newton's first law. Right, okay? I like to call it the couch potato law, because let's think about it. You're on the couch, you're watching your favorite show, playing your favorite video game, whatever. The remote or the game controller is within your reach. You have snacks, you have drink, right? What's the last thing you want to do? Get up and move, right? Okay? There's probably only 2 things in the universe that are going to make you get up and move. Number 1, the need for the bathroom. And number 2, somebody of higher authority in your life comes by and tells you to get a life, get a job, get a haircut, whatever, right? Okay? So, in order for an object to change its state of motion, right, we need something. And that something we need is a force, which introduces us to the third law. But before we get past the first law is often called the law of inertia, so we better make sure that we all understand what inertia is. What's inertia?
The natural flow of things?
No.
Isn't it a property of matter?
Yeah, okay, matter, flow, movement. What has more inertia, a bike or a car?
A car.
How'd you know that?
It has a faster acceleration.
Oh, you keep using the M word. We haven't talked about mass yet. You know that the car has more inertia because if you want to change its motion, it takes a lot more effort, doesn't it? You got to push or pull on the car harder than you have to push or pull on the bike. So inertia is this funny thing. It's kind of got a funny definition because it's kind of all about what it isn't. What do I mean by that? Inertia is an object's desire to stay put. Inertia is a measure of how hard it is to get that thing to change its motion, which is kind of a long definition. You instinctually know, right, that the car has more inertia than the bike does, and you're sitting there going, well, Mr. Beta, why don't you just talk about the mass? That'd be easier. You're not wrong, but it's important to understand, right, that inertia is this quantity of stuff in the universe that responds to or tries to act against any changes in its state of motion. And to be clear, does my iPad right now have a state of motion? Yes, it does. What's its state of motion? Not moving. That's weird, right? Because you're used to attaching motion to something that's actually moving, right? Well, it's actually moving, it's just not changing its location. You're like, what? No, that doesn't make any sense. Broaden your definition of motion. This is a state of motion as equally valid as that state of motion, right? So motion in general, right? What is the velocity of the object? You can draw a straight line between motion and velocity. And does this thing have a velocity? Yes. What's its velocity?
0.
Okay. All right. So things want to stay. Things want to keep doing what they're doing. And there's a caveat. There's an additional line. An object at rest stays at rest. An object at motion stays in motion. Finish the sentence. Unless acted upon by a outside force. Oh, geez. What's the force? Wait. Don't answer that question. It involves midichlorians or something, right? What's a force?
Yes. You haven't told us yet.
Well, I haven't told you yet, but you're supposed to read. All right, let's do an experiment because physics is grounded in observation, experimentation. I would like you to take your finger, whichever finger you want, preferably the index finger, okay? I want you to turn to your neighbor and first ask them for permission, and only if they say yes, I then want you to poke them very gently in the shoulder, and then let them do the same back to you. Go. All right. What did you just experience? Human touch. Some of you are like, felt kind of good. You went and poked your partner in the shoulder and then they poked you back, right? But in just you applying your finger, you applied a what? A push, right? And then we'll talk about later, your partner pushed back. Not turned around and went, right? But instead, right, in that interaction, you were pushing and their body was pushing back, right? Okay? But you exerted a force on your partner. So what's a loose definition for what a force is? Don't make this harder than it needs to be. It's a push or a pull. That's what a force is. Okay? There's no more to it than that. Okay? People try to overcomplicate this definition all the time. A force is a push or a pull. And we need to be able to identify the object that's causing it, but we'll get to that in Newton's third law. This has got to be good, right? Just got to be good. I got to switch applications for the video here. Yeah, isn't it great? It's not that they're not there. It's just that on YouTube, an educational video, in big quotes, is all about generating revenue and views. Right. And so the education part falls behind. Okay? So that's why, as an old man, I use these old videos. Yeah, oh yeah. And these are like canonical. Every physics department has these. What chapter are we in? Chapter 5. I should have set this up before I started, but you know. Why do it ahead of time when you can do it now? That's the spirit. Okay. Why do today what you can do tomorrow? Okay. Oh, didn't get the volume either. What do you think's going to happen?
We'll try to remove the tablecloth from under these dishes without making a mess. How? By yanking the cloth out very fast. Pull slowly and the table setting moves. This will have to be done much more quickly.
Candles, very important.
A cube wrapped inside the loose edge of the cloth provides a firm grip for a fast pull. When the cloth is yanked out fast, the dishes barely move.
Okay, Why did the dishes not go with the cloth when it yanked out fast? What did they have? Inertia. Inertia is resistance to changing motion, isn't it? Okay? And so rather than flying off with the tablecloth, they stayed in their same position. They did fall just a little bit, right? There was the thickness of the tablecloth, they had to fall. Now, before yanking it fast, the experimenter did pull slowly and the dishes moved. Interesting. In that scenario, the tablecloth was able to overcome the inertia of the dishes, right? They moved with the tablecloth. So there's a time element there that we're not going to get to until we get to momentum, really. Okay? So, which is chapter 9. So we'll sideline that for now. But if things happen fast enough, objects want to maintain their state of motion. In this case, the dishes just wanted to stay put. I'm not going to tell you not to try this one at home, because I know some of you are going to do it anyway, right? What I will tell you is that you better make sure, number one, don't do it with your mom's good dishes. Number two, did you notice the key thing that makes this work? Did you not see it? The candle. What was in the edge of the tablecloth? There was like a bar. Okay, there was a wooden or metal bar in the edge of that tablecloth. This is very important, because if you just take a tablecloth, grab it, and pull, okay, when you pull, you set up a bunch of different vectors, okay, that are all pulling differently depending on what angle, right, it makes, and different things. The tablecloth surface is going to be moving at different speeds at different times, and you're just going to have broken stuff, okay? So if you're going to do this one at home, make sure you get a broom handle or something in the edge of the cloth. Make sure you are pulling the whole cloth, right? The entire cloth needs to move at exactly the same rate, and do it quickly, and you'll be all right. All right. I'm not sure there's any educational benefit to this one, but I want to show it to you anyway.
We will blast a pencil through a piece of plywood using a carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. A pencil is inserted into this tube, and the carbon dioxide fire extinguisher is connected to the end of the tube.
Yes.
When the fire extinguisher is activated, it will drive the pencil through the tube into a piece of plywood positioned at the exit of the tube.
Wait for it.
Here is the action repeated in slow motion.
Oh, broke the lead. Okay. If I gave each of you a 1/4-inch piece of plywood, right, a little piece of plywood, and a pencil, and said, you know what, your grade in this class depends on your ability to get that pencil through the plywood. Go. What will happen? Ah! Right? There'd be blood. Right? Ah! We could go get some of the high pressure presses they have in the engineering department, 50,000 pounds of force, right, applied to that thing. And what would it do to the pencil? It would just smash it, right? Okay? You can have all the force in the world, if it isn't applied fast enough, that's not going to happen. Why did the pencil sail right through that piece of plywood? Inertia. What did the pencil want to keep doing? It wanted to keep moving, right? And it wants to do that so badly that it will pass right through that plywood. Now, you saw that it didn't make it all the way, right? It did stop. The wood was able to stop and change the inertia of the pencil. But again, that's kind of getting into a time thing, and we'll get to that later. Inertia, all about how fast something wants to go. All right, oh, you know what? I'm just going to stick to this because it's easier. Okay, third law. Newton's third law. I know you guys know this one too, even if you didn't read. What's Newton's third law? Oh my gosh, that word. Oh my gosh. For every action, what's an action? It's a force. Okay? So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. In other words, whenever you apply a force, what happens? There's another force that is the opposite direction, but same magnitude. Now we're using vector words, aren't we? Okay, force is a vector. In other words, forces always exist in pairs. A push or a pull always happens between two objects. How many objects do you need for a force to exist? Two. What's another way to say this? An object cannot exert a force on itself. When you pushed on your partner with your finger, there was a reaction to your action, right? You pushed with your finger. What was the other force that was in play? Their shoulder pushing back on your finger, right? In an interaction, when two objects interact, there is a force. Or to reverse that, in order for a force to exist, how many objects do you need? Two? Do I hear three? No. One. No. How many? Two. You are going to get to a point where you are going to start inventing forces. You're just going to be drawing forces, inventing forces, and you're going to come up to me, man, that's not working. And I'm going to be like, where did this force come from? Name the object that caused that force. And you'll be like, always, always be able to name the object that's causing a force. Because if you can't, there's a really, really good chance that you have invented something. And we've already come up against this. Remember the C word? We were going around in circles. Is there any object that pulls you towards the outside of the turn? Can you name a thing that as you turn right in your car pulls you to the left? Can you, let's do a car standing at the stoplight, right? And the light turns green, you hit the gas, right? Half of you, more than half of you, swore to me that the force on you was that way. Because you're like, well, that's what I feel, right? Mr. I push back in the chair. Name the object that is pushing you into the chair. The car? Which way is the car pushing you? Forward. Because that's, your inertia is changing that way. Name the object that's pushing backwards on you. Seatbelt's just holding you in the chair. Did an invisible troll jump on the front of your car and go? No! There's nothing. And you'll sit there and you'll invent object. Blame the seatbelt. Blame the car. No! The seatbelt and the car are pushing you forwards. But you could have sworn, you were like, no, something's pushing me backwards. What you are experiencing is your inertia. Your body's desire to not change its state of motion. But an object applied a force in the forward direction. What was the object that applied the force in the forward direction? The car. And if the car pushes on you forwards, what do? You push back on the car. Newton's third law. I need a volunteer, someone who can lift 171.8 pounds. Come on up. Is it Isaiah? Yes. Oh, I remembered. I'm doing pretty good on most of your names. Isaiah, do you lift?
Occasionally.
Occasionally, okay. Stand right here. Okay. Isaiah, would you please pick yourself up?
Can't.
Well, you're not even trying. Right? He knew, right? He knew right off the bat that he can't pick himself up. Okay, Isaiah, pick me up. Whee! Put me down. All right, give him a hand, everybody. Thank you, Isaiah. Right? So how did I know it was 171.8 pounds? Weighed myself this morning. Why was Isaiah not able to lift himself up? Why was Mr. Balogh not able to lift himself up? How many objects are there? Only one. I mean, I'm obviously applying force to myself, but nothing's happening, right? Not going to change my state of motion, but, right? Okay? And some of you are like, oh, well, you could. What did you push on? The floor. Jumping is pushing on the floor, right? Okay? So, why was Isaiah able to pick me up? Strong, right? It's ripped. Why? How many objects? Right? How many objects are required in order for a net force to exist? 2. How many times have I repeated that idea in the last 5 minutes? A lot, right? It's important, isn't it? So it would be nice if there were like a guaranteed 100% of your money back guaranteed way to remember that, right? To never forget Newton's third law. And boy, are you lucky today, because I have something for you, okay? But before I can tell you what it is, I need you to promise something, okay? And unfortunately, you kind of have to blindly trust me here, because I'm going to ask you to promise to do something without telling you what you're going to do. But what you have to promise is that you will follow my instructions exactly for the next 3 minutes and do precisely what I say and put your whole soul into it. Okay? How many of you are willing to make that promise? I need like 100% of you behind me on this. Are you willing to do exactly what I say for the next 3 minutes? I promise it's not indecent and it won't harm you physically. Those of you who are not raising your hands are still raising your hands. Okay, good. Because this is not a democracy. Okay. You have promised to do exactly what I tell you for the next 3 minutes. And so what we're going to do in order to remember Newton's third law is we are going to learn the Newton's third law song and then sing it together. Don't worry, I'll explain how this works later, but first, we need to learn the song. And to do the Newton's third law song, we need 2 objects, like, I don't know, the iPad in the desk, right? The iPad sitting on the desk. And so if I were to sing the Newton's third law song for the iPad in the desk, this is how it would go. I'm going to sing the song, and as soon as I'm done singing the song, those of you that are still conscious will then repeat the song with me, right? Sing it together. You ready? Okay, here we go. If the table exerts a force upon the iPad, then the iPad exerts a force upon the table. Oh, you get Fs. Nobody clapped. Nobody clapped. You get it. No, it's too late. It's too late. No. That is false love right there. I don't care. Right? All right, everybody sing. You ready? Sing the table first. If the table exerts a force upon the iPad, then the... That was awful. I need your best shower voices, right? We need to put our heart and soul. Okay, let's see. Give me 2 objects that are interacting. Feet in the floor. Okay. Let's sing floor first. You ready? If the floor exerts a force upon the feet, then the Okay, don't go for a singing career, all right? Okay, so what does the song remind us of? Kindergarten. Okay, it reminds us that there are how many objects? Two. That's like the key thing right there, right? To sing the song, you have to have two objects, right? Got to identify the two objects, and then you sing the song. And then the song reminds us that if one object is exerting a force on the other, then the opposite's true also, right? Okay? Why is this a guaranteed way to remember Newton's third law? No? The emotional trauma of having to sing in public, okay, is going to sear this into your brain for forever. I've had students come back 15 years later to sing the song to me. That's the emotional trauma, right? This class will impress upon you. I've had students come up to me and ask a question, and I just go, and they go, right? Okay? I've had students hum it to themselves during exams. Like, it works. It helps you remember that concept and grounds your brain in how many objects? They won't let me build one of these here. I know. We did anyway one year, and then they yelled at us some more. Anyway, only good things can happen, right?
The spray from a carbon dioxide fire extinguisher looks a lot like the exhaust of a rocket. And like a real rocket exhaust, the escaping CO2 can accelerate a large mass.
She's not a large
Use
mass.
This extinguisher mounted on a rolling wagon to accelerate a person to suborbital speed.
Suborbital.
3, 2, 1, blast off.
Oh, come back. Whee!
Engine cut off.
Right? I'm thinking lab. Right? I'm thinking lab. All right. So, why did the wagon go? Why did the wagon change its motion? Because there was a force. That's the answer, right? Because there was a push or a pull. To change an object's motion, there must be a push or a pull. What law is that? First law, right? So now we're into third law. What were the things? What two objects interacted to cause the force on the wagon? Interesting, you guys went for CO2 first. What was the wagon pushing backwards? CO2. So according to the song, should we sing the song? You ready? If the wagon exerts a force upon the CO2, then the Oh! Was there any air mentioned in that song? Was there any ground mentioned in that song? Was there any lab coat color mentioned in that song? Political preference, anything else? No. Would this work in space? Yes. This is exactly how you maneuver things in space. They don't use carbon dioxide, they use different gases, but the principle is the same. If the nose of the spacecraft needs to go this way, which way do you push gas out of the nose? The opposite way. Wall-E knew this. Can't show you the clip because of copyright restrictions, all that kind of stuff, YouTube strikes. But, spoiler alert, in the film Wall-E, which, by the way, I consider to be the greatest Pixar film of all time. So others are great, okay? But I think Wall-E is heads and shoulders above them, because if you have the first 40 minutes of a film with no talking in it, and you can pull off that level of emotional depth and complexity, Anyway, there's a scene in Wall-E where Wall-E dies. Told you, spoiler alert. But he doesn't really die. It's a Disney film, right? Okay. But Ava thinks he's dead, right? He's blown up in the escape pod. But then, heroically, Wall-E comes streaming out of the escape pod carrying what? Fire extinguisher. And which way is he pointing it to get to Ava? Opposite, right? If he wants to go forward along positive x-axis, he needs to point the fire extinguisher which way? Backwards. If Wall-E pushes negative x on the CO2 of the fire extinguisher, what will the CO2 do? Push him in the positive direction. I love Pixar. So awesome. Okay, let's do a quiz.